day's a day, a bad luck's always a coming my way.
For today's Grimm adventure, we find ourselves about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh in a place known as West Middleton, Pennsylvania. It's a windy day. It's been raining all morning. But this is perfect for what we're doing today.
They came to pay their respects.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Why do you have to be so cruel?
What?
Show some respect.
Now they're running for their lives.
A biologist in Stockton, California have released reports focusing on the phenomenon, specifically on that trance-like state.
Every shelter is becoming a trap.
Are you sure we're gonna be all right?
Cooper, you gotta help me out!
And every road out
Don't stop no matter what happens.
is just another dead end.
They're coming right for us!
George Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
Just like the original Night of the Living Dead, the movie pretty much opens up in a cemetery, Evans City Cemetery. In real life, in 1990, West Middletown Cemetery, which was established in 1901, stood in for Evans City. This is the sign as it stands today. But for the movie, they built something a little extra special. When it comes to the remake of Night of the Living Dead, there are a couple things that you need to know going into this. The first one being, it's in color. The second one being, like I said, it's directed by Tom Savini and written by George Romero. And unlike the original Night of the Living Dead, the remake had a cast of some pretty amazing characters, pretty amazing actors. Tony Todd was in it, Patricia Tallman.
Girl's name is Barbara. I'm Ben. You damn near broke my arm here, Mr. Ben.
And, you ready for it? Bill Moseley played Johnny.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. They're horny, Barbara. They've been dead a long time.
Because the cemetery is high on a hill, it makes it very, very windy. But the cool thing is, you can look out for miles in all directions. And there's birds flying. You kind of feel like you're up in the clouds, don't you, baby ghoul?
I saw geese.
You saw geese?
Yeah.
The remake of Night of the Living Dead is pretty much identical to the original. I mean, shot for shot, including the opening scenes is of Johnny and his sister driving the long, winding roads up to the cemetery, which in the original, as well as this one, it's Evans City. But for here, they had this very elaborate gate, and it said Evans City Cemetery written on the top. Now they would have drove right up this road right here, and you can see it curves off to the right. And that's the way they drive in the movie. It's not that big. It's really not.
Tell me something, will you? Why do we have to put ourselves through this charade?
Because she is our mother. Can't you at least give her one day out of your life?
One day? This is the 4th time we've been up here in the 3 months since she died. I'm spending more time with her now than when she was alive. And you know why?
Don't start.
She couldn't possibly be buried in the city. No, that would have been much too easy.
Entering the cemetery, that's the way that they would have been driving. Whenever they left, they would have been coming right down this way back out to the main road. Now, what's really fun about this, you don't really get the sense of this watching the original movie, but when they first enter the cemetery, they drive around. There's a couple of different fancy camera angles that makes it look like the cemetery is a lot bigger than what it really is, and it's really not. Same thing with the original as well as the remake, as well as in the original movie, all the cemetery scenes were pretty much filmed right at the entrance. All these scenes are right over here. Right now we're just walking around the cemetery trying to line up shots before we turn the camera on that. And I wanted to point out that for this, even though it's almost a shot-for-shot remake of the original Night of the Living Dead, Tom Savini had a very specific vision that he wanted to execute for this. And he wasn't able to do that. If I'm not mistaken, when it was supposed to be released, it was supposed to have an original, like an NC-17 rating, but they made him cut so much stuff out. So what you actually see is not what Tom Savini intended this movie to be. If I'm not mistaken, at one point, there was a distribution company that released a limited amount that showed deleted scenes. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. So I don't think we're ever going to see how this movie was supposed to be. With that being said, when it comes to a remake, this is one of the best remakes that have ever been made. I'm gonna say that. I'll go on record saying that because it's fun, it is. The next camera angle we see inside the cemetery is from right about here. In fact, you can see 4 different tombstones if you look very closely. But also, pay attention to how much the trees have grown in the background.
That would have been much too easy. She knew I'd have to be the one to drive you up here. That's why she had herself buried 200 miles from the nearest glass of beer.
Johnny, now we're here. Will you please just stop it?
Stop what? The truth? She drove our father to the grave. She drove me away from home, and she damn near drove you.
A little bit of movie magic. It looks like they kept the camera in one spot and they had the actors drive around the cemetery a couple different times to give the illusion that the cemetery is a lot bigger than what it actually is. The next shot we get is from right here. It looks like it's going to start raining again.
That's not true.
When's the last time you had a date?
That is none of your business.
The one thing she never ever drove was 200 miles to visit anything.
Johnny, please. No, I need you to stop.
They really did everything in their power to make this cemetery look bigger than what it actually was. The next shot we get is from right about here. In fact, you can see those 3 tombstones in this shot. And way off in the distance, if you look closely, if you squint, you can see Jessica. There's an obelisk in the movie. That's no longer here. And you see the trees. Beyond that, there's actual water, like a river down there. And in this scene, the car can be seen driving from the left-hand side of the screen to the right. They pretty much kept the camera in one spot. How crazy cool is that?
Anything.
Johnny, please. No, I need you to stop talking like that. Don't talk like that, not here.
What do you mean, not here?
Not here, not in the middle of...
Of what?
Now let's talk about the mystery of the obelisks in this scene. That's what you call them, right? The giant monuments, the obelisks. Now, when we first got here to the cemetery and we were pulling up the movie to try to line up stuff, you could see obelisks everywhere, but they're not here. I don't know if they were set dressing or if they were removed. One can be seen, the one that we were just showing you, right where Jessica was standing, she hasn't moved. There's these pedestals. So was that one here at one point? What happened to them? Another reason why they might have chose to just film back here, at least the driving scenes, it's pretty far away from the main road. Like I said, it's not a big cemetery. Kind of sound like a broken record saying that, but at least here they can film, different ways. The car coming from this way and going that way, and they can climb up on the hill. They can get some shots from behind where the trees are and make it look like the car is really driving a long distance. Hollywood movie magic. You gotta love it. So we know they did most of the driving scenes, well, pretty much all the driving scenes back here. But most of the dialogue actually happened up towards the front of the cemetery. So we're gonna go ahead and walk up there. And the next shot, you can see a tombstone with a name prominently on there. And for years, I thought it was, what do they call it? A set piece, like a fake tombstone, but it's an actual person.
It's not a very big cemetery, but it's easy to miss the names. There are a lot of Craigs and a lot of Thompsons, but we're looking for Holmes, and I have not found that yet. I think it's up this way.
Aside from the mysterious obelisks that are no longer here, If you look closely, you can actually see a statue on top of one of the stones, like this bronze statue. Can't find that either. So again, was that set dressing, or was it just a victim of vandalization? Victim of vandals over time. See, we told you. A tombstone that says Holmes, and it was a little hard to find because it's actually not facing the road. We had to walk up onto the hill to see it.
It makes sense to me that tombstones should be double-sided.
Right?
They don't all face the same way.
When it comes to the actual shot from the movie, we're going to try to do this in one fell swoop. The entrance to the cemetery is about the center of your screen, but the camera follows the car as it drives further into the cemetery. Again, movie magic. The camera passes right by this stone that says Holmes, and once it comes over to the other side, you see the car turn off the main road into the grass like it's not supposed to, and you see that tombstone right there. Now you notice the one that says Rush? That one wasn't here when they made the movie.
Not here.
Not here, not in the middle of...
Of what?
Show some respect.
You're afraid, aren't you? You really are afraid of this place.
God, you never stop. Oh, God, Johnny. Bastard!
Bill Moseley would have driven the car straight up between those tombstones and parked pretty much right over here. In fact, if you look very closely over his shoulder, right past the door, you can see this tombstone that Jessica's leaning on. You see that little trim right there? And then we get that famous line. How does it go?
They're coming to get you, Michael.
Clever.
Bastard!
Jesus, you're weird.
Let's just get through this, can we please? Just get it over with.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Now, truth be told, we planned that. You see, the last time that we were here in Pennsylvania and we did the filming locations to Night of the Living Dead, instead of saying, they're coming to get you, Barbara, I said, they're coming to get you, Jessica. So it only makes sense now they're coming to get me. Oh, what's really cool about this scene, if you look off in the distance, towards the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that statue that we were talking about that is no longer here. Who knows what happened to it?
Jesus, you're weird.
Let's just get through this, can we please? Just get it over with.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. Barbara.
For the love of God, Johnny.
The very next scene, we see this tombstone that says Stewart behind Johnny as he walks after Barbara, saying the ever creepy line,
It's creepy.
"They're horny, Barbara, they're horny." And when they get to right about here, you get a peek at a hearse parked over here on the road.
Barbara.
For the love of God, Johnny.
They're horny, Barbara. They've been dead a long time.
After Johnny says they've been dead for a very long time, we get a shot from right about here, kind of like it's peering out from behind this tombstone. Now you see that tombstone about the center of your screen off in the distance, and then that tree that's right behind it? From right about here, you see somebody walking up the hillside towards them. And Johnny says, "Look, look, there's one of them now."
Look, there's one of them now. He wants you.
Everything that happens next pretty much happens towards the back of the cemetery. A couple different scenes that happens rather quickly. You can see the top of this stone that says Scott and Richie. But if we come over this way, this is how I know that statue was a set piece, that it wasn't going to be here. And I should have known this because we looked at the scenes beforehand. But we see the guy who walked up on him, he had a cut on his head, walk down here. And you see that cross, and you see that tombstone right there at the base of it, just behind it. And then towards the right of your screen, that's where you see that statue again. It's no longer here. So they picked it up and they moved it across the cemetery from one location to the next to make sure that it was always in front of camera.
Seeing movie magic is always fun. Every time we look at a different shot, it's like, I think they're walking up the hill, and then the next one they're walking down the hill the same direction, and then there's another obelisk. I don't know why they're not here anymore. I have so many questions.
I wonder if you can go back and just kind of mark it. I wonder if it's the same obelisk throughout the entire movie. They just, one set piece, they just picked it up and kept moving it in different areas.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. Why would they have a statue, a roaming statue in such a small cemetery to make it seem bigger?
Yeah, older maybe too.
So the real question is this. Where does where does Bill Moseley get it in Night of the Living Dead 1990? Well, if you look very carefully, you can see this tombstone that's behind Jessica. It says Thompson, and that means we're in the right area because it's glorious. Again, so much has changed, but that tree is still there. That tombstone is right there, and this one right here in the foreground, this is where Bill Moseley, Johnny, gets killed in Night of the Living Dead 1990. And the best part about it is if you watch it in slow motion, you pause it just right, you can see the dummy. It's perfect. Now we have to find the getaway. And what I mean by that, in the original movie, as well as the remake, after Johnny gets it, such a beautiful way. Like, I smile every time because Bill Moseley, that was one of the coolest deaths ever. Once Johnny gets it, Barbara, she gets in the car and she tries to escape. Was it a prop tree or was it a real tree? We're about to find out. If the tree is in fact here to this day, it might not be. I mean, 1990, you never know. Now, in order to find where the car hit the tree, we have to go back to where they turned off the road and parked in the cemetery, which would have been right here. Now, in this scene, the car goes backwards down the hill, and it goes down a rather steep hill, I might add. And wouldn't you know it, right over here, it drops down quite a bit to some woods. Because it rained a little bit, the grass is a little slick. But I'm gonna walk down here because there's a tree that's down here that looks like it has the same bark as in the movie. Whenever the tree hit it, you get a shot from behind, there's like a knot. So, hey, you're here, you might as well check it out, right? Jessica's way up there. In a way, it kind of feels impossible that we're gonna be able to find the tree because there are so many. But there's one right down here that sticks out more than anything. It's gotta be it. Here, let's walk back there. That bark looks the same. No, it's not it. Well, that was a bust. And then I realized that I was looking at this scene from a story point of view, from continuity, as if I'm the viewer, but not as if I was actually making the movie. With that being said, I looked at it again from a different point of view. And you see to the left of your screen, well, about the center of your screen right now, you see those bare trees? That's the entrance to the cemetery. If they're going to back a car down into the woods somewhere, or make it appear that it's down in the woods, they'd probably do it towards an area where they can actually get the car out easily. It makes sense, right? Now you can see those in this scene. So we're gonna walk down here and take a look at some of these other trees that are up here. We're overthinking it. So these trees have the same bark, but again, in the movie, it's down a hill, so it's gotta be further down this way into the actual woods, because once she gets out of the car, she turns and she walks into the woods, and that's how she gets to the farmhouse, which again, is nowhere near here, but in theory. Now there's two trees, two big trees that could be it. It's gotta be one of them if they actually filmed that here. So we're gonna go down, take a look at each one of these, fingers and bones crossed that we find it. If not, well, at least we tried. Let's go ahead and do this one over here first. I'm really liking this old fence. Old fence means old wood, which means old nails. Now I've had a tetanus shot, but it's never fun. Now at the time of recording this, it's been 32 years since Night of the Living Dead 1990 came out. It's 2022 right now. And honestly, I have no idea how much a tree can possibly grow in 32 years. But out of all the ones that are here, this one looks the most like it. And if I line it up just right from right about here, it's about that same angle. Let's see, something like that. Again, I can't say for certain, but this seems about right. That is if the tree's even here. And also, if the tree wasn't fake, or if it's still standing. But if it is still standing, this one might be it. And it would make sense. It's really close to the main gate. I mean, the main road is just right over this hill. Go ahead and wave, Jessica. You can see Jessica standing right there. And there's a building. I mean, you can see the cars whizzing by. If we wanted to, we could spend all day here at the cemetery walking through the woods trying to find this tree. Personally, I don't know if we could ever find it, unless that was it. But we still have one more place that we need to visit, and that's the farmhouse, the other big filming location from the movie. But I must tell you this, we cannot get on the property. The guy who owns the house now is not a big Night of the Living Dead fan, and he doesn't want people on there. So we can stand on the street, on the main road, point the camera at it, and talk about it. We're not gonna be able to really line up some shots. I'm gonna show you a few things, but for the most part, this is what we came here for. Years ago, when there was snow on the ground, I was able to get back down this road to where the farmhouse is. But over the years, so many people have come out, especially with the Living Dead Festival that happens down in Pittsburgh. The owner does not want people back there. But if we were to go down this road, we'd see the farmhouse, the entire farm where they filmed. I mean, they filmed the entire thing back there. Now the farmhouse sits back there pretty far. It's almost impossible to get a shot of it. But I'm gonna try my best with our cameras. But that's it, you can see it way back there. Now I know somebody's gonna say, wait a second, you've come out here all this way, just go down there. Well, we never trespass. That's not what we do here. We don't condone it. In fact, if you do come out here, be respectful, get pictures from the road, and that is about it. But we can drive around the neighborhood and see if we can get a better vantage point, right? Man, that wind really whips around the hills, doesn't it? I'm hoping that translates on camera the way that it does here. It's pretty otherworldly. Now, what you're looking at right now is the Night of the Living Dead 1990 farm in its entirety. 3 main buildings, and of course things have changed. It's been 32 years. But let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Obviously you got the main farmhouse off to the right hand side. Some of it looks like it's got some new siding and some new paint. It's funny, my entire life I've always been a fan of horror and George Romero, and back in the day before the Grimm Life Collective was a YouTube channel, it was a website. I always wanted to be a travel writer and take pictures and write about my adventures, but I never liked the idea of writing for somebody else, so I created my very own thing. That's how the Grimm Life Collective officially started. And then, I say this all the time, I realized that people didn't want to read, that they wanted to watch adventures. That's where people's interest was. But when I lived here, I visited the filming locations to this movie and The Dark Half and Martin. And every time that we come back to Pittsburgh, I try really hard to just kind of visit those places. There's a few here and there that are really hard to get to, and still there's some that you can't get to anymore, which is rather sad. But the fact that you can stand here and see this farmhouse, it's pretty cool. This wind is definitely something else. That and the tree that I'm standing next to right now, as the wind goes, the tree branches creak. It's kind of unsettling. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time from West Middletown, Pennsylvania, where Tom Savini filmed Night of the Living Dead. Hear it? 1990. Happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always coming my way.